Thank you for checking out the podcast. My name is Lavelle Miller, and this podcast, I'm just recapping some things that came to my mind after I left a training session today. Sorry for the audio, because I was doing this in my vehicle as I was driving, so it's going to sound like I was in a wind tunnel. But anyway, there's some good information here. Hope you like it. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, share it around, and hope you enjoy the pod. So you've probably been thinking about starting your podcast, and you've also been trying to figure out how to make money on your podcast. Well, I have one solution for you that can take care of both. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started on your podcast today. Anchor is the one place I use to record, distribute, and edit my podcast. It goes to Apple, Spotify, Google, and many other sources as well. As this ad that I'm reading now, it's a free ad that you get to do as well and to earn money on your podcast immediately. Anchor also goes out of their way to find other sponsors for you so you can keep that money flowing. So once again, all you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started today and start your own podcast that you've been waiting for. Hey guys, how's it going? Here's Lavelle Miller with the Brave Way podcast. I just left training. I got from an upcoming fight March 6th. And so I know I'm in my car right now doing this. Of course, I'm doing it safe. It's hands-free, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. But it does sound like I'm in a wind tunnel. I'm sure you're going to hear probably some bumps, some stuff like that. Because like I said, I am driving. But I wanted to do this while it was fresh on my mind, and not have to wait till I get home and then, you forget your thoughts and things like that. What I'm trying to discuss with you all today, what I am going to discuss with you all today about trading, from my aspect, especially when it comes to amateurs. I'll do this up until maybe I ever turn pro. Maybe I get one or two pro fights in before it's all said and done. Maybe I don't. But so a lot of this stuff is, like I said, it's always related to amateur competitions. When the lines are blurred when it comes to pro, AME, like grappling tournaments. But for this, it's just amateur mixed martial arts. And what I want to get into y'all with today is about thinking you need to win the day. Now, I say that because I rolled with a guy today. I wouldn't mention his name if I remembered it, for the sake of, privacy or whatever. But he's also fighting on this upcoming card. He told me it was his first fight. I don't think I've ever seen him in a grappling tournaments or things like that. I don't know how long he's been doing this. But what I'm sitting there thinking is with him, and so after we rolled, and I guess to preface it like this, I tapped him a few times. I got some people tap me as well too. So as I sit here trying to use that as brag on myself, but like after me and him got through rolling, he ended up telling me things that had been going on with him, why he's not in the condition that he needs to be in to fighting and things like that. And this isn't, of course, it's going to sound like I'm talking about the conditioning because I just brought that up. But I think what it is, when you are getting beat by something, like, next time me and him compete, or roll, not compete, but do some sparring, roll it. I invited him to come to our sparring sessions that we have upcoming, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But overall, what I want to say is that, when me and this guy were going everywhere and he's having to explain everything to me, you don't have to explain to somebody about what's going on, right? Sometimes you're just getting caught. Somebody's beating you to the punch, and not actual fist, so to say, but maybe they're shifting their hips faster than you. Maybe they're getting the takedown faster than you. Maybe they're able to advance a position faster than you, or whatever. When you're, so when you're upcoming for a fight, if somebody is beating you like this day in and day out, or just a couple times, you may be like, man, I may not have what it takes to actually win my first fight or any fight upcoming. That's a mindset you don't need to have, and a mindset that you need to get rid of, right? Learn from all the training experiences that you are having when you're out competing with people. I keep saying competing, but when you're out sparring with people for the sparring partners, learn things that you do, tendencies that you do well that work but that don't work anymore. Like, for example, right? Like I said, I'll give it, it's a situation when I was tapped out. There's a certain move I like to do when I'm on bottom that the first time me and this guy ever competed with each other, I did it to him like 7 or 8 times, right? I did it today, and he was prepared for it. Not that me and him, this has been weeks since we had sparred together, but he had been prepared for it, because as soon as I went for it, he was able to block it and then set himself up a rear naked choke attempt. And then I was able to fight it off for a little bit, but then he made some adjustments, and then it got me to get the tap, right? And, of course he was like, oh yeah, I remember, yeah, because you did this last time. And the thing is, for me, my learning thing is that, obviously when I'm in the middle of competing against somebody that first day in the actual cage or an actual jiu-jitsu match, you may not be prepared to make those adjustments on the fly. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, right? But when it comes to him, he was able to put it in his bank. He had coaches there that was watching when I was able to execute it, and he was able to take it back with him to work on things that he needed to do to be able to work out and get out of these situations. A lot of my other teammates are being more cognizant of the same move or whatever, so now I'm having to do a couple different things, practice on different escapes, which is good for me, because that means that it's like, hey, okay, you guys are doing this, now I'm going to start doing these other moves, right? It helps everybody out, because I'm not going to get it in my head that this move may work 100% of the time, 100% of the people. I would need to know, if I do this, it doesn't work, I need to go here, I need to go to play A, B, C, or D all the time. And then for my teammates, they're able to recognize that, hey, there's a guy who does this, and he cannot be the only guy who does this and does it very well. So I need to know, when I see this happening, what I need to do to counter it and be able to work on it and move forward. And then there's another thing that I mentioned before, that I'll say it here again, is this practice champion mindset that we all end up getting into a lot. The practice champion idea, I mean, it's not new, but the first time I ever heard of it was when I was wrestling in 8th grade. Because at the time I think I was like 14-0 middle school wrestling. I know middle school wrestling doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but just where I would be here. I was 14-0, I believe, in middle school wrestling. And then we went against Antioch High School. Went against the defending city champion. He pinned me within the first minute and 30 seconds or something like that. And then we ended up losing, and then my coach ended up being like, I told you it started with you, and then you go out there, one of the leaders on the team, and then you just get ragdolled. Because I did. Like, that's probably the worst I've ever been ragdolled in my life wrestling. Like, I don't know, like, I just checked out or for that match because I had been on this hot streak. Whatever the case may be, that was the worst ragdoll I've ever got in my life. And I can sit here and say I've been ragdolled in wrestling. You should. If you go against good guys, eventually somebody has to give it to you, either it's your coach or other teammates, or it's just somebody on the mat. Anyway, so after that loss, then I went to, I believe it was Apollo after that. Then we went to Apollo. And then I lost again, got pinned in the first period. Then after that, then I got pinned at JT Moore. And all the while I'm in the gym training, doing everything, going hard and all this other stuff. After my loss to JT Moore, my coach was like, Miller, you have the looks and the feels of a practice champion. He said, every move you are hitting close to perfect in here. You're out wrestling people who have had, at least a year or two wrestling experience on you, and then now you're going out to the mats and you can't execute. You're looking lost, like you don't know what you wanted to do or whatever. And then that lit a fire under me because, it pissed me off. And I think it would piss most people off, especially when you're like, man, practice champion, look what I did. Look what I was doing for everybody. Look what I was doing for the team. And then now I'm being called practice champion. Fast forward, like I said, this is the same mentality. To be honest, everything, you got to be honest with yourself. It's the same thing that I think I was falling into from my first 2 MMA fights. And, that's why you go back and look at it and review these things. My first MMA fight, roller coaster of emotions and all that other stuff that I had going into it. First fight, some other things that happened regarding weigh-ins and things like that. And then the day of the fight, it drove me a little bit, crazy. Heart rate was up at all or whatever. And I think I did fairly well, but, I didn't get the desired result. And then going into my second fight, just thinking that I was going to be better than my opponent everywhere. He was going to gas faster than I was and stuff like that. And then disrespected the power that us big guys carry, no matter who has a better technique or not. And they got caught with a good punch and got put out of there. And so that's when, after that happened, I was like, it's either it is really shit or get off the pot when it comes to martial arts. So I had a fight that was supposed to come up. I had to pull out due to illness back in 2019. But at that point in time, for that fight, I was in the gym 4 or 5 days a week, either lifting weights or actually training jiu-jitsu or striking, working on combinations and things like that, just overall cardio. And it's been the same thing for the camp that I've got going on now, because I'm not going to sit here and think that I'm just going to be good to go, everything's good, it feels fine. Like rolling around with all these people and stuff like that, I don't ever feel like I'm tired when it comes to grappling. But when it comes to like striking and stuff, that's where the gas tank gets a little bit sapped out of me, because that's a lot of stuff I'm not used to doing. Anyway, but the thing is, I guess to make the point clearer, when you're winning in the gym, do not brag about the things that you do while you're in the gym. Why? Because there's a lot of things that you do not know why is happening in the gym, right? Like I just said, I had a guy who was had some things he had to work through to be able to get to the point where he is now, right? That's the reason why I could have been having, the advantages I had on him there. Then it also could have been maybe I'm actually outworking these people in these various circumstances where I'm able to get to where I need to get to, right? You never know. So you don't want to put yourself in a circumstance that you're like, man, I'm doing all this well. What if you are, okay, let's say this. When you're sparring with people, you're not supposed to really do the same things that you always do. Why? What good does it do? Like, who cares if you lose in the gym? That's what the gym is for. And you're not trying to lose when you go to competitions and stuff like that. So what good does it do if you keep going for a straight ankle lock for whatever, or let's say you're the world's best straight ankle lock person in the world. Who cares if you keep straight ankle locking everybody else, and then you just straight ankle locked everybody from the lowest white belt to the highest black belt at your gym, but you're not practicing everything else and all your other moves, right? And then you go get somebody who's able to stop that straight ankle. That's what you want to do. Then you don't want to be, there's a guy, he's known as the purple belt killer. You can look him up. I think they've had some articles about him where he wrote this long post essentially saying, I think he was like a 2 or 3 stripe white belt, how he tapped this purple belt, a 2 or 3 stripe purple belt with a bow and arrow choke, and the purple belt did say that to him afterwards. It say good job, that, and then this guy feels like he's all the top of the world or whatever, right? How does that guy know that the purple belt wasn't working on bow and arrow defense, or he was trying to work on a different back escape that he's never done before? Maybe he had an injury in the middle of training or whatever that you weren't aware of or cognizant of, or doing all these other things, right? Maybe he was just trying to let you build confidence by letting you go ahead and get in a position to get the tap. You don't know. So it does you no good to brag about things like that. If I'm, there's a certain strike that I'm working on, and it's based off another strike, right? If I'm doing it, how do I not know that or being able to set it up and land it, how do I know that my teammates aren't trying to work on a new counter to the actual same move that they know I'm working on? How do I know if they're if they're orthodox, they're trying to practice things in southpaw just in case their right hand got broken in the middle of the fight or something like that, and they needed to lead with the right, that way they can just throw more power with the left. You don't know. If it comes to leg kicks, right? What if somebody's practicing like a counter from the checking the leg kick, and that's the reason why you're able to land the leg kick a little bit more? Maybe they're practicing being right out of range, that way you only can land the leg kick, that way after you land they can move in and throw a couple strikes at you and then get back out. These are all things that you do not know. So it's things that go in your memory bank that's like, you're like, these are things I'm doing well, so let me keep working on the things that I'm doing well. But it does not need to go into the bank of, I am doing all these things so well that I would be able to land these on a variety of different opponents. And something else that we all seem to do as amateurs, don't go on, we're not professional athletes. I mean, you can okay for a professional athlete form of sport, so let me not say that. If you're an amateur MMA fighter, that means you're not a professional MMA fighter, right? And then of course you got some time or whatever. The techniques that you see that's executed at the highest level, Bellator, UFC, Ryzen, LFA, whatever, right? Of course, these are also different various levels of high. Do not think that these techniques that they're working on are going to work on an amateur fighter. A lot of, when it comes to smaller guys, probably so, because smaller guys, you're working on your craft, you having to worry about cutting weight, you're having to do all these different things. You may not have just necessarily big power, so a lot of the things you're doing are technically sound and technically great, and anything you do to get an advantage over somebody. If you are a bigger guy, a lot of the guys that you're fighting fatigue relatively fast, or they just throw haymakers because that's all they've been taught to do their entire life. So, if you're like, oh man, I'm doing all this, I can do this or whatever else, don't ever think that. Don't never use it as a, man, I'm so good at doing this technique, because you're doing it on, especially if you're most of your sparring partners, especially if they're more a lot of amateurs, if you're landing on amateurs certain techniques, don't think that you're really good at it. They just don't know how to set it up or block it. Like, what's good is, let's say, working out this certain technique I was doing, I was executing this technique fairly well, and then the coach ended up stopping us and said, hey, to my training partner, and said, hey, this is what you need to do to stop that, because if you don't, he's going to set you up and then go here. Because it was the first time me and that training partner had ever sparred together, and the coach had obviously seen me spar with other people and then trying to execute the same thing. he said, hey man, this is exactly what you need to do. Do it like this, and I'm telling you, you'll be fine. And then he started doing it. And, my trading partner was able to start doing the correct thing to prevent this from happening as much as he could. And then as I'm sitting there having to, okay, they're doing this. If I still want to work this out, what other steps can I take to counteract and make it look better? It worked better for both of us. But that's what I kind of want to say. So, yeah, I know it just ended up being it's kind of like big old ramble, monologue type thing. I might get back to inviting people on the pod, but I got to put more pods out. So this is a way I felt like I could do this, and relatively have things going. Everything's been good for myself. A side note, my wife had tested positive for COVID a few weeks back, so I had to take a few weeks out from the gym. But it's a good thing to mind focus, heal up some injuries, do a lot of other little things to work on my stuff, and then went back to the gym on Friday, and then been back at it ever since as much as I can. So I wanted to put that out there, but I do want to say to everybody, just think about these little things. Back to wrapping this all up for you. One, practice champion mindset goes two ways. First way is failure to execute what you're doing in the gym into an actual event, right? And the way you get to this is by psyching ourselves out and that's why I just realized I didn't tell you that. So after we were done, my head coach was talking to some other guy, and then the guy was asking about my upcoming fight, things like that. And we was talking about one of our guys, not going to say his name, but he's a champion in the organization that we're fighting on. And our coach was like, he said, man, look, we've been trying to work on his nerves. He's really nervous all the time when it comes to fighting people and things like that. And I'm like, man, I was like, really? He's so good. He's made to walk this many times. And I mean, I'm not getting nervous thing, but it's like that's why he's not executing, because when you're in the gym with this guy, I mean, he is on you from the word go. Striking, grappling, whatever. Barely ever I'll never see him get tired in the gym or things like that. But anyway, so he was like, yeah, he said, you may not know it, but he said he really does, man. And there's a lot of times right before he makes a walk, he has to be convinced into doing it. And he was like, that's the reason why you see him do only certain things while he's in the cage, and then it's essentially like he's defending himself because like somebody's attacking him versus him actually going out there and fighting. I was like, oh man, I didn't know this. And I know the practice champion is going to offend people, but it's like thinking about that's what we have to do. We have to, to help prevent that. It's like the same thing like they said here, because it's true. Like that guy, he's lost fights I don't think he should have lost, but it's like we have to go ahead, sit back, relax, calm, breathe, think about everything that you've trained for, everything that you have done, right? You've trained to the point of where you think that the person that you're competing against has not put in the same amount of work that you have, period. That's what you should be thinking about when you're going to these things, right? Because we do not want to get into the practice champion mindset. That's number one. Number two is the practice champion mindset kicks in, especially when you think you're executing certain moves and you're bragging about executing them to other people, not knowing what your teammates were attempting to do themselves. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're bragging about, man, I done subbed 50 people. Today, everybody got it, from the Browns to the Blacks and the purples and the greens, and we had a red belt came in and got it. Nobody cares about that. Nobody wants to hear that. Right? So that's number one. Number two, that is number two. That is number one with that part about it. And then number two, you're not a pro, right? You're an amateur, right? If you listen to this pod, you're probably an amateur. Do not think that the high-level techniques that you see on TV that you're having to land on other amateurs means that you're really good at it. It's what you can land consistently on pros. Because, like, you may catch a pro off guard with a certain move, right? That may just work one time. But if you're able to set it up and land it again, set it up, land it again, that's how you know that you actually have something, right? But at the same time is that your end goal? It shouldn't be your end goal. You shouldn't be like, oh, I have this one high-level technique and I'm able to execute it. That doesn't matter. Got to go back to the basics first. You got to be able to land jab, cross, hook. That's what you're looking for, right? If you're a wrestler, maybe you're throwing jab overhand because you can use overhands as entries into double legs. If you don't understand what I mean, that's fine. But that's what you're looking for. It's the same thing as simple body kicks, simple head kicks, simple leg kicks. That is going to do what you have to do. And of course, being able to set it up. Because a lot of times, as amateurs, we throw a lot of things naked. And naked means that there's nothing covering the strike that we're doing. And so it's very easy to be seen and able to be countered by somebody who knows what they're doing. But, I said but a lot this whole podcast. In closing, thank you guys for checking out the pod. There'll be 3 of my teammates fighting on the card March 6th. We're supposed to have affiliates from some other gyms. Sean Hammond's team is also supposed to be fighting on that card. So that'll be nice. Have a nice Sean Hammond's working it there. And then also do this too. Hey man, if you have a guy that shows up to an event, right? Like the guy like I told you about earlier, I asked him, hey man, do you have big guys to train with? He told me no. My first thought was, hey man, we got some big guys. Go ahead, come in and get some work in. Help everybody out, man. Be a good gym, be a good steward. To those around you, because who knows, man, they may need you to come out there and give them to do some work with them there at their gym. But anyway, thank you guys for checking out the pod. More to come with the upcoming fights. Check out my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 37mode for pictures and ticket sales, things like that. And this is how you become legendary. Greatness is earned.